phone with us is Peter Hilary, the adventurer, the mountain climber, the guy.
Yeah.
Peter Hilary.
He's been everywhere.
He's been everywhere. Hello, Peter. Welcome to Travel Show Live, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
I am sorry that we were kind of a little long-winded here at the front of the program, but you, of all people, certainly understand the positive power of travel, don't you?
Well, look, I think it not only expands your horizons, but more importantly, it gives you the opportunity to refresh yourself and relationships around you. You know, go out and have a wonderful adventure with people that you really enjoy being with.
Yeah, I think, and when you do that, what happens when you come home? Yeah, I mean, your stories of being on the road and certainly climbing Mount Everest, for heaven's sakes, among other things, what happens when you come home and tell those stories?
Well, look, of course, I think a lot of people think, well, how will you ever fit in again? But in fact, I think a lot of these adventures and challenges actually make you appreciate home like never before. You know, just the pleasure of crisp white sheets, food in the refrigerator, all those sorts of things that we take for granted.
Yeah.
But look, I think it helps me actually appreciate my family more, just having been away from them for some time. And, you know, I think it's a very healthy thing.
Well, what was it like? You know, you're the only person who knows this in the whole world, which I think is so special that you're on the program today to tell us the answer to this question. What was it like to be the son of Edmond Hilary?
Well, look, I mean, obviously there are pros and cons with being the child of a world famous person. But you know, I'd have to say overwhelmingly it's been a very positive experience for me. My father, Ed Hilary, of course, you know, was the first man to climb Everest. He drove a Massey Ferguson farm tractor across Antarctica to the South Pole back in the 50s, and he just kept on doing extraordinary things. In fact, Dad and I went to the North Pole with Neil Armstrong, who's been in the news a lot just recently.
Sure.
So we had some incredible experiences, but the best thing about them was that we shared a lot of those experiences together. And I think that's one of the great things about adventure travel, going to extraordinary places, is that you can share that experience with people who matter to you, and that can be very enriching and revitalizing. You know,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is, nobody really, I'm not sure people, and maybe you could disagree or agree, but I'm not sure people plan trips so that, you know, with the express purpose of, I want to go on this trip so I can get to know my children better, or I want to go on this trip because I want to get to know my dad better. I mean, I think that might take a backseat to, I want to go someplace, or I want to have some sort of an experience, be it a relaxation or a spa or an active experience or whatever. But the real hidden treasure there is that when you do it with some friends, or when you do it with your family, or you do get to know them a little bit better.
Look, that's absolutely right, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I enjoy my austral summers, of course, the winter time in November, December, January, where I do spend a lot of time down in Antarctica, because when you're on a comfortable ship, it's possible to have a real blend of adventure, going ashore for a short outing or even a minor expedition, but returning to the comfort of a ship and sharing that with people that you care about.
Now, Steve, I know you're going to be really excited when I ask this question, because it's completely original.
All right.
And you've never been asked this, Peter. You ready?
Okay, that's the first time.
This is the first time you're ever going to hear this question.
Let's hear it.
What's it like to climb Mount Everest?
Look,
I like
it's a
that
pretty
one.
incredible experience, but funnily enough, the first feeling you have when you get to the top is, I've got to get myself down off this thing in one piece. You know, it is a wonderful feeling being up there. The outlook is incredible, but you're totally extended in terms of what you're capable of doing. The altitude's affecting you, the cold, exhaustion. You've been on an expedition for 3 months, and there is that little feeling in the back of your mind, you've got to get on with getting yourself down to the bottom of the mountain.
And yet, Peter, you, if I'm correct here, it says you went twice to the summit. Is that correct?
Yes, look, in fact, I've been on 5 different Everest expeditions attempting difficult routes on the mountain, but I have summited on 2 occasions, so I'm pretty familiar with that mountain.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting that you said the first thing you think about is I have to get back down. I suppose that does make a lot of sense. Is there a period of time when you get to the summit where you get to stop and smell the roses, as it were?
You know, it's a fairly brief moment, and depending on the conditions, there are many climbers who reach the summit, and it's very cold, the conditions are nasty, the wind is blowing at 40, 50 knots, and they don't have any time to stand around and really enjoy it. They tag the summit and head on down, because if you don't, you're not going to get down alive. But I've been very fortunate on both occasions. I had about an hour and a half standing there up on the summit. And I've got to say, though, well, I should admit to you that, you know, you're so debilitated by the altitude. You know, when I think back on it, it's this slightly foggy, pleasant but foggy recollection of standing on the highest point on Earth. And as I was saying to you, you know, this sensation that, you know, I'd better get on with moving down pretty soon.
It sounds like it must be a rather ghastly combination of exhaustion and oxygen deprivation.
Yes, look, it is a combination of all those sorts of things, and even emotionally, it's a mixture of fearful dread, elation, and of course just relief that the upward climb is over. I
may have one original question also.
Oh, what do you got?
Peter, what's the real story about the Yeti? Have you seen any Yetis?
I was trying to get through this interview without that.
Right, the Yeti question. Well, no, generally we don't see them until very late in the expedition.
Ah, okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's right.
What with the oxygen problem.
Yeah, exactly.
The oxygen goes, the Yeti shows up.
Well, I got to say, you know, I'm not sure I want to ever climb Mount Everest.
It sounds like too much work.
It sounds like a lot of work, and it sounds like you have to be a very unique individual. I'm really glad that you would you do it differently, Peter?
Look, I mean, it is a lot of work, and I think the answer is that, you know, certain people are attracted to certain things, and yes. You know, I've really enjoyed a lot of my expeditions, although I freely admit there's been many times where I've been thinking, you know, why me? What am I doing up here? Why couldn't I be doing something else? Right. And I think that's why the you know, the trip I'm doing down to Antarctica in November, December is such a nice compromise, even for someone like me, because you've got some of the comforts, you've got some of the opportunity to have people you like around you, and you've got the adventure as well.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that trip too, because that's with Travel Dynamics International, right?
That's correct.
And what's the itinerary? You know, I love that company, and we did a Great Lakes trip with them just recently. We've got video coming out very soon. But what's the itinerary like that you're going to be doing with them?
Well, look, you know, I've gone down to Antarctica 16 times, and I've got to say this itinerary is the best of the lot. It goes out to South Georgia Island, where many of your listeners may remember that the great Ernest Shackleton, the British explorer, sailed in a little dinghy to rescue his men, and he did an incredible crossing of the island. So we do have an opportunity on this particular cruise for a small group from the ship to actually do the crossing. And I and Dave Hahn, a well-known U.S. guide, will take the group across. We'll rejoin the ship, go around South Georgia Island, down through some of the sub-Antarctics, and then eventually down to the Antarctic Peninsula with all its icebergs and seals and penguins and whales and all the rest of it. So a pretty marvelous trip.
Oh, I love it. Now, again, if we want to, and you're going to be on that trip, we can go on that trip if we want, right?
Absolutely. Look, you can go, I mean, you can bring the family, and a couple of you can head off with me and Dave Hahn and do the actual crossing of South Georgia and then rejoin the ship for the rest of the cruise through the Antarctic. Okay,
and that's with Travel Dynamics International. I wanted to make sure we got that name in, because that's where you would go if you want more information about this itinerary.
Exactly. Travel Dynamics International, which is in New York City.
That's exactly right. I love that company. I'm glad you were here. Thank you for doing this today, sir.
That's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Look at, it's Peter Hilary.
And the book, his book, In the Ghost Country.
Oh, right.
We've got to pick up a copy of that because I was checking it out online, and there's some wonderful stories in that.
Oh, yeah. What's the name of it again?
In the Ghost Country.
In the Ghost Country. We can do that. That's easy for us.
Yeah.
We know how to. We can just go right downstairs to Borders and buy a copy.
That's right.
All right, we can do that. All right, we have to do a quick thing here on WABC. We'll do a quick break.